Hey there, Daniel from growingmusicstudio.com. And in this video, I want you to settle in because we're going to have story time for just a minute. Because in today's video, I'm going to share with you the embarrassing confession about my productivity in Q4, the problems it caused for me, how I solved the problem, and what it might mean for you in 2020. Now, the beginning of the year is kind of the cliche time to have these conversations. Everyone's coming out with a post about productivity, the hacks you need to do, going to the gym, having great habits. It just so happens that this topic is top of mind for me because of what happened to me in the Q4. And so I want to tell you a little bit about that and how it might affect you and what you might learn from some of the difficulty and trouble that I had over the last 3 months. So I'm going to start with a simple thought. The seeds of failure exist in the harvest of every success. The seeds of failure exist in the harvest of every success. Let me tell you what I mean by that. When you experience success, it's often because you start new habits, you take on a new mindset, you perform new actions, and as a result of those actions or those mindsets, you propel your business to a new level of growth. Well, the paradox of that success is that as you move to a new level of growth, you no longer can handle what business and your business life throws at you. So because you're successful, you go to a new level and now you have new concerns, new problems to deal with. You have new activities that you have to perform to keep your business operating at that level. So in the seeds, in the harvest of success are the seeds of failure. All right. So let me go even deeper and how I experienced this in Q4. So Grow Your Music Studio had its best year ever in 2019. We worked with more studio owners. We worked with more studios. More studios went through our programs. Significantly more studios went through our programs in 2019. And it strained our systems. It strained our staff. I felt like I was constantly looking for new team members all throughout the year that could handle different aspects of the business. Our revenue grew by 20, 30% as our expenses went down. And so what this meant was that I constantly felt in a state of flux throughout the year because what I was doing in 2018 on a day-to-day basis didn't change all that much. But from quarter to quarter throughout 2019, I felt like my job was changing on a quarterly basis, sometimes on even a monthly basis as my focuses changed and as I needed to delegate things. And so by the time I got to Q4, I felt really completely out of control. We changed ways that we did marketing. We changed ways that we signed on new clients, all kinds of things. And so what I found to be true of myself in Q4 was that oftentimes I felt extremely unmotivated to work on a day-by-day basis, which is a weird feeling for me because I've always been someone who has been extremely motivated. I've always been someone that when I have a goal in front of me, I've moved very courageously and moved very quickly towards that goal. But because so much had changed, I often felt like I had 8 different goals at once. And I felt like I was in a state of overwhelm for really a good part of the last half of 2019. Whenever I get that feeling, I know that it's time for me to tighten up on my disciplines. Okay, so what did I do? I want to tell you that stupidly, and I really am not exaggerating when I say this, the stupid simple habit that I started again, something that I've done in the past, hadn't done in a while, and I resumed it again. But before I do that, how might you know if this would apply to you? How would you know that you should take on this habit that I'm about ready to talk about? I'm not just kind of trying to be cute or coy here. How would you know that you should do something like this? First off, if you don't feel like you have enough time in the day, if you feel like there needs to be 32 hours in the day for me to get everything done, I recommend doing this. If you're frequently confused as to what actions you should be taking for your studio or even for your personal life, if you feel that way, I recommend this habit. If you can't prioritize or you won't prioritize your actions. So if you look at a list of, if you have a mental list of 200 things that you know need to be done and you aren't sure what you should do first, or you don't even want to take the time to organize that list, I recommend this habit. Last idea, If you're simultaneously working on 3 or 5 or 7 major projects at once, I recommend this habit. And when I say major projects, I mean, okay, I know I need to start ads for my studio, and I need to update my website, and I really need to rewrite my policies, and oh man, I really should hire an assistant. And that teacher that is doing the preschool program, really, they're not qualified for preschool. We need to just move them to working in private lessons only, and I need to hire a preschool teacher. Where am I going to get the time to do all this stuff? If that feels like you, I recommend this habit. So here it is. Here's the stupid, simple trick. Years ago, I read a book by Atul Gawande, and this is a really popular book. So if you even misspell that guy's name, you're probably going to find it, because the book is entitled The Checklist Manifesto. Years ago, I read this book. It's only about 150 pages, I think. It wasn't this giant business encyclopedia. It had a very simple idea. I'm going to take a couple minutes to tell you the premise of the book and the, again, stupid, simple habit that one should start based on the concepts taught in that book. And it's this. Atul Gawande is a doctor. I think he's in his 50s or maybe early 60s now. And years ago, the World Health Organization asked him to do a study as to the worst hospitals in the United States. And they defined worst hospitals, and this is a little grim, hospitals with the highest mortality rate. Which hospitals in the United States have the most patients dying? And they asked him to go into those 10 hospitals and figure out a way to decrease those mortality rates. So he went in, and his first job was to figure out, okay, what's killing these patients? I'm not going to spoil the book. Well, I kind of am going to spoil the book, but I'm not going to go through the long process through which he figured this out. But his solution was simply this. And again, this is so dumb. It's almost embarrassing that I'm making a video about this. It's almost embarrassing that this has actually really, really helped me at the end of 2019 and the beginning of 2020, because it is so simple. What Atul Gawande did, before an operation in a hospital, the head nurse was responsible for going through a checklist of 3 items. I can't remember what one of them is because it was a really specifically medical thing, but one of those things was make sure that the surgeon washes his hands. Another one had to do with something like disinfecting this tube that apparently all these hospitals were forgetting to disinfect. And then one other really dumb thing, like make sure there's plenty of sterile gauze over, in this particular area of the operating room. It was just 3 little things like that. Here's the really sick thing. When they did this, these hospitals' mortality rates plummeted. In other words, the number of patients they had dying just absolutely plummeted when they implemented this simple checklist. Now, this is a little scary, because when you think about it, what that means is there are families out there right now that, a family lost a father, a husband, a brother, because the doctor wasn't washing his hands. It's absolutely insane. And here's what's really, really funny about it, was that when they implemented these checklists, the people that were most opposed to them were the surgeons themselves. They actually thought, this is demeaning. This is pedantic. This is embarrassing. You're going to ask me to wash my hands? They were really opposed to this, but the reason they were was because there is this professional pride. There's this human ego that gets in the way that thinks, oh, I'm a smart person. I'm a capable person. I don't need to write these things down. But when all these hospitals implemented that checklist, their mortality rates plunged, and some of these hospitals actually shot to the top of the best hospitals in America. It's absolutely insane. Now, what does this have to do with a music studio? What does this have to do with productivity in 2020 and all these sorts of things? Well, here it is, the point. Our brains were made for creating ideas, not holding them. Our brains were made for creating ideas, not holding them. That's actually a quote from David Allen, who's a huge influence on me and my thinking. And so what I did, the hack that I started, if you want to call it that, was I thought very carefully about what am I actually supposed to be doing each day. Remember the overwhelm I mentioned a few minutes ago? Because my job changed so much in 2019, because the rate of change inside my business was so great, my job was constantly changing. I felt unhinged, unanchored. And what I needed to do was identify the things each day that I knew that I should be doing, so that when it came to the part of my day where I was having to do complex, messy things that made me feel uncomfortable, that I hadn't burned up all my willpower, all my energy, all my creativity, just remembering to do something stupid like go check your employee inbox so that you make sure that your employees aren't waiting for some deliverable from you. So here's what I did. I wrote down in terms of my health, my business, and my personal life, the things that I need to be doing each day. I wrote them on a simple Word doc. I printed it out, I laminated it, and every single day I start check marking off the things that I know I should be doing that day. So within my business, I have most important task, hour 1, hour 2, hour 3. So I spend 3 hours each day working on a major project for the business. This is 5 or 6 days a week. Write a marketing email. I don't always do that every day. I'm pretty stop and start with that. I'm addressing that in quarter 1. Clearing my employee inbox, clearing my personal inbox, clearing my email. So basically a task inbox and then clearing my email. Clearing any social notifications. So oftentimes people reach out to me on social to ask about doing work with me or doing work with our team. And if I'm not logging in and checking those social feeds, it's very possible we might miss helping a studio. And then I spend some time each day kind of just shutting down the engines, recharging, and doing things that keep me future focused and keep me really in tune with where the business is going in the coming quarter. So here's what happened after I started implementing this checklist in kind of the very last month of quarter 4. My stress levels decreased greatly. I started becoming more productive each day. I felt like I had purpose. When I finished one task, what I often found myself doing before was like, oh, Daniel, you finished a task. And instead of thinking about what should you do next, my brain mentally wanted a break. And so I spent a lot of times, and I'm not embarrassed to admit this, but I spent a lot of times playing like stupid little games on my phone or mindlessly scrolling Instagram or going and looking at a YouTube video that I'd saved in my watch later. Now, because of this checklist, I immediately pick this thing up and I see, 20 minutes clearing your email. Do that so I can check it off. And it's almost become a game for me because you can even see today, I've got some checks on here in this section. I'm going to handle this later. And after I finish this video, I'm going to check that one off right there. This has really, really helped get me back to this place of centeredness and calmness as I've started 2020, which is really, really important because the goals that I have for this year are really audacious. And the only way I could do that is if I'm not spending my precious creativity, all my precious brain power on just remembering the things I need to do each day. It feels silly. It almost might feel demeaning or embarrassing that you have to do that. But I can feel my sense of purpose has really, really increased over the last month because I've gotten back to this habit. So that's the thought. A bonus idea for you right before I leave. And this is something that I shared a year ago on the productivity webinar I did at the beginning of 2019. So here we are at the beginning of 2020. Simple idea. You cannot spend all of your time as a CEO in your business. And here's what I mean. Right now, Grow has more coaching clients than it's ever had at any time in its history, and going on 4.5 years. I see so many of the people that I coach or that are in my programs spending all their time, their brains just burning, thinking, worrying, clicking, the machine, just running at 100 miles an hour. What do I need to do? What do I need to do? What do I need to do? You should not be thinking about what you need to do in your business every single day, and certainly not every single minute or every single hour of every day. You need to think about what you should be doing in your business at most once a week. Quarterly, spend a half day and get really, really clear on what you need to do over the next 90 days. And then once a week, review that information, make sure you're on the right track. And then the rest of your week, for 160 hours of the week, 165 hours of the week, you should just be acting out on that plan that you made. I see so many business owners, I see so many studio owners, I see so many of my clients getting up each day thinking, okay, what do I need to do? And you can't exist that way and not be stressed. And what you'll eventually do is shut down and not work at all. And I actually experienced this week with one of my coaching clients where she mentioned, and I'm not going to mention names, and if she's watching, she'll know who she is, but she'll work really, really hard for a couple weeks, and then she just coasts for 4 weeks, watches Netflix, these sorts of things. And this is something that I've seen a pattern in my own life. And I certainly don't want that. I want to stay productive. I want to stay focused on my customers. I want to stay focused on my goals and getting to where I want to go and doing it with the most peace and the least amount of stress as possible. And I think the way of doing that is being the CEO for only a few hours a week and then being a worker that acts on those plans. Don't second guess yourself. Don't be thinking all the time, what should I be doing? figure that out once at the beginning of the week and then spend the rest of the week acting on that plan. That's kind of the bonus idea. So thank you for your time and attention. I know it's precious. I really appreciate you watching this. If you have a thought or a question or a comment, leave it below. If you want me to follow up with another video on this topic, be happy to do so. Just leave a comment below. But otherwise, hope you've had a great first few days of the new year, and I will see you in the next video. Bye-bye.